Welcome to the Family Home Podcast with Courtney and Michael Adamo. We're so excited to bring you this special mini-series to celebrate the launch of our new book, The Family Home. Over the next few weeks, we'll be diving into the themes of the book, talking about creating a home filled with warmth, connection, and intention.
We'll be sharing our own experiences and chatting with inspiring guests during this time and exploring everything from family rituals to how to keep an organized home. Pre-orders for the family home are now available. We've put a link in the show notes, and pre-ordering is the best way to help us get this book out there, and we'd love for you to have it in your hands.
Yeah, we popped a link for the pre-ordering in the show notes below. Today, we'll be talking to Simone Davies, who is a Montessori educator based in Amsterdam. She is the author of The Montessori Toddler and co-author of The Montessori Baby and The Montessori Child. These are comprehensive guides, beautiful books to raising children the Montessori way. In addition to her writing, Simone runs the Montessori Notebook, which is a popular blog, an Instagram account, a podcast where she shares insights and practical advice on incorporating Montessori principles into daily life. As a mother of 2 young adults, she brings both professional expertise and personal experience to her work. We're really excited to chat with her. She's always a wealth of knowledge, and she always offers really practical tips as a Montessori teacher would. And so we get to sit down and chat with her tonight. Welcome, Simone. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to get to talk to you today.
We're so excited to talk to you. So in our book, we've written an entire chapter on how to encourage, how our homes can be set up in ways to encourage independence and autonomy in our children. And I thought the first question we should ask you is just why that's important. Like, why is encouraging independence an important thing to do?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think you touched on it because you used the word autonomy. And basically, independence is all the skills that children need so that eventually they'll be able to have autonomy and choice and agency. And people want to do things when they feel involved. So I love starting from like the youngest age group. And when you set things up so that they can do things for themselves, they feel enormously capable. And there's this word trust that's very important in the work that I do, that they feel trusted to carry a glass across the room, that they are trusted to pack their own school bag. You know, it sounds like, oh, well, actually, most kids don't want to do this. But actually, when you help them and guide them, they can do a lot by themselves. They feel capable. And then they also take responsibility, because the other side of independence is responsibility, is that, yes, you're not just allowed to do whatever you like, but within, you know, the frameworks, and setting up your environment helps that as well. Like, instead of having access to every set of shoes, let's just choose from the ones that are appropriate for the season, for example, with a younger child.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I guess that's what we want, is for, like you're saying, for our children to be responsible from a young age, you know, like not just in adulthood.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. And it's like, I always talk with Jennifer, who wrote the Montessori Baby and the Montessori Child with me. And we talk about how it starts with dependence. Like a small baby is dependent on us completely for everything they do. And then we move to collaboration, where we're doing it a little bit together. And then independence, when they're doing it by themselves. So it's always scaffolding. And I even see it, you know, you've got older children in your house as well, and they need scaffolding too. So they're not going to be able to necessarily go to the store, buy everything they need, cook dinner for us. But if we say to our 10-year-old, oh, would you like to be in charge of dinner tonight? And they select the recipe, and then they write a shopping list, and we check that what ingredients we need, and then we make a list together. And then in some places they can go to the store independently, but for many of us, we stand at the door of the store, they go in and choose everything, and they pay, and then we can where we can pay them back, you know, this kind of thing. They feel like, I'm really taking responsibility, and I get to cook for everybody. And so they feel really proud of themselves. But that doesn't happen overnight. It's all these little steps, these little scaffolding skills, and helping them, just giving them as little help as possible, but as much as necessary. And they feel really pleased to be part of the family.
We've included that quote, which I got from your book, in our book, which is exactly what you just said, which is, yeah, say it again, because I think it's a really important one.
Get as little help as possible, but as much as necessary. Absolutely. And I actually, it's a silly example, but when I first went to a Montessori playgroup with my son, he was 18 months old and everyone else could put their shoes on by themselves. And I thought I was a terrible parent because my kid couldn't put their shoes on by themselves. And so I went home and I had a little chair and I put it by the door and I put his shoes on. I'm like, okay, Oliver, you can put your shoes on. And he just sat there. He didn't know what to do, like what the expectation was. I realized, oh, actually, first I need to open the shoe. He puts his foot in. Then I show him how the Velcro works and then he has a turn. And, over a couple of weeks, then he's able to put his shoes on. It's not just that like it's instantaneous because sometimes, and so that's that giving as little help as possible kind of part.
Yeah,
because that ultimately getting them to put their shoes on is not only setting them up to be a capable human, but also it makes our life easier too as their parents, right? Like,
absolutely. Yes. I mean, you must know with all the children in your household, if you had to put everyone's shoes on, but if you invest some time at the beginning by slowing down and helping them with that process, then you've got children who can get themselves dressed, who take responsibility. And I love in bigger families when you all help each other, whoever's running late, oh, Mom, you're running late today. Can I grab something for you? And, we're all working together.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we definitely find that in the family, or we'll ask one of the kids to help one of the other kids. And that definitely happens. I wondered if you could explain sort of the key elements of a home environment and sort of what is required to encourage that sort of independence. Like, I know that you're setting up classrooms because you're a teacher and you work in the classroom, and in many ways the home can mirror some of those aspects. But in terms of the home, what kind of key elements would you suggest?
Yeah. So, I mean, I love working with families. So I love setting up spaces at home or in the classroom. And it's amazing to see what happens when you give the children this possibility. So basically, access to things, putting things down low that you want them to access, putting things in storage that you don't want them to access. So that's about accessibility. But like in our classroom, for example, there's a low hook where they can get a broom and a dustpan and a mop. And so it's very easy for them if there's a spill, instead of, oh no, it's all, spilled, they can actually go and get it themselves and wipe it up. Or having activities in baskets. I love seeing in your home, Courtney, how you've always got baskets with some of the animals in it or some of the building blocks and that kind of thing. So they can take the whole basket and then work with it and then put it away. And you also might want to have like mats that they can roll out, because then it keeps all the Lego pieces like on one place when you don't have to tread all over it. So it's also being part of the family that everyone can look after other things. So that would be about accessibility, making things beautiful. I think that makes things attractive. And I see that in your aesthetic as well, and in many of the homes as well that you have featured, because when things are attractive, they're absorbing beauty, they're absorbing taking care of things, they're absorbing often their culture, because you might want to include cultural aspects if you're a family from Japan or from Sweden. And you have things that signify, or even, when people have a partner from a different culture, it's how can we actually include both cultures or many cultures in our family? So that's also a really beautiful part of it. Looking from the child's height, I think, is always really important. So when you've got really young children in your house, as well as older children, what does it look like to be the baby lying on the floor? And maybe there's like a shelf that looks okay from our height, but actually it feels very cluttered. I worked with one family and they had like all these old speakers and things up high in their bookshelf, but for the child, they didn't want to get close to the shelf. And when we cleared it all away, by the time I visited the next time, the child was really happy exploring the space. So having a look like, why do they keep pulling over that plant? Can I move the plant in a way that they can't access it right now? And then over time, as they get skilled and we've, taught them how we can be gentle with plants, then you can also, then make it more available to the rest of the house. There'd be some of those things. I mean, looking at each area of the home. So what do we need and this function of this space? So in that small area where you walk in the door and everyone dumps all their things, how can we make it so that they can have independence there? How do you get the lunch boxes out of the bag and into the kitchen, so you don't have moldy lunch boxes? Everyone's had that, right? So you set up the system so that it works as well. So I think there'd be some of those things. Even in the towels in the bathroom, if they're left on the floor, maybe we don't have enough towel hooks for everyone in the family. It's really simple, but often we're complaining about something and we're like, oh, you're right, they can't even reach that hook. So why am I expecting them to be able to hang it up? And how can I make them be able to do it themselves? And then as your children children get older, you think, well, they know where their things are. We don't have to set up beautiful spaces anymore. But actually, their sense of external order is not so important to them. They're more interested in who they're going out to meet and that kind of thing. So having a special place where they always have their musical instruments or their sports clothes or those kind of things, so that they know exactly where it needs to go on the way out. So those kind of things, I think, give a lot of independence and autonomy and choice. And it also is part of being part of the family, that we're all taking care of each other.
Yeah. And don't you think that that's a really important thing to emphasize for children, like that we are all a part of this family and that contributing, because I thought maybe we could talk a little bit about chores and about the importance of contributing, because I think
yeah, we often say it's a team effort here. Things just don't get done by one of us. We all have to contribute.
Yeah. And in our family, we sit down and we share, like, this needs to get done, this needs to get done. Like, which one of these tasks do you want to have? And, how important is that in a family?
Yeah, I think, and when you start from a very young age, they're just always involved. So it doesn't even have to be this battle, but you've always done it. So that can be something that we can talk about as well. But that being a part of the family actually gives them a role and a purpose. And we have to also make that meet each child. So for example, there may be one child whose contribution is actually they can play the best Spotify playlist for our mealtime. They're not actually the kid that's really good at washing the dishes or those kind of things. So actually play to everyone's strengths as well, or at least have something that they find fun. In our house, we didn't actually pay for chores to be done around the house. We didn't give them pocket money for chores. We gave them pocket money for them to practice using money. So there was €5, and that they learned that if actually I make my own lunch at home, then I have this €5 that I could buy lunch at the tuck shop or the canteen or whatever to spend on other things. So they learned to save money and things. But the actual chores, I would only pay them for a chore that I would actually pay someone else to do. So for example, if you run a business and yeah. If you run a business and you're making a workshop poster and they do that for you on Canva, then you could pay them for that. Or if mowing the lawn or washing the car is something that you pay someone to do and they want to do it, then that's when they could earn some extra money. But for other people, mowing the lawn might just be part of their family chores and things that they really can do and really help to be part of the family. And actually even contributing to the family is one part. And then contributing to the community is another part as well, because we become independent so we can help ourselves, we can help others, and we can help the environment, right? So it might even be that there's an elderly family a couple that live next door, and they offer to mow the lawn free, just because it's part of taking care of other people. So modeling those values that are important to us.
Yeah, nice.
I think that's really great advice, and we're the same with chores. We've never paid our kids for chores, but for things like
except for things like washing the car.
Yeah.
It's funny. I never thought about it that way, but that is what we've done.
Yeah. It's interesting because we were just having dinner with friends and we were talking, and the friends were talking about how their parents used to make them do the craziest chores, and we had the same in our family. Like, it made us realize that actually our kids, who we think have lots of chores, actually don't have.
Well, relative to their friends, at least by their telling, they have lots of chores, right? But yeah, compared to Courtney or big grown up, our friends we were just with,
But then I think it instills such a great work ethic too, which is really important for growing up and being an adult.
And they can make it their own. They can make it their own. Like, say, setting the table was something that they like to do. And then you've got one kid who's super creative in your house, and then their turn to set the table, they make little name cards for everyone and beautiful calligraphy writing. Or another child thinks, oh, I'm going to pluck some flowers and, I'm going to arrange some flowers on the table, or I'm going to write invitations. It's just a perfect Sunday night dinner. It's nothing important, but I'm going to write invitations to everyone, and it just can follow their interests and their character, and it can be fun. That's the thing as well, is that I think the word chores is almost like the wrong kind of name for it, because it makes it sound like it's difficult. And it's just like, I would ask my kids, would someone mind saying the table, dinner's nearly ready? And it's just because whoever's closest in the kitchen, and we're all part of the family. And similarly, if normally they might unload the dishwasher, but they're running late for school, I'll help you out today. I'm going to do the dishwasher, and it's that kind of thing. And also having speaking to them about what the consequence would be. If you don't unload the dishwasher and we go to set the table and there's no cutlery, it falls on someone else's shoulder. So they can also see the natural consequences of them not doing things. So we're not trying to nag them all the time as well, because that just makes it really a conflict situation as opposed to a cooperation component, which is what we're trying to foster.
Yeah, and you mentioned briefly, or you kind of alluded to it, but the importance of starting when they're young, even kind of before their help, is actually helpful.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I just think of like when you're undressing your child to put them in the bath, for example, and it's very easy for us to just throw their clothes into the laundry basket. But if you say, "Oh, Oliver, would you like to carry the t-shirt and I'll carry the shorts," and we go and put them into the laundry basket, and they've done this for every time they've gone into the bath for all of those young years, then when you have a teenager and they are getting into the shower, they just automatically put things into the laundry basket because it's already there. So it's not like they don't even think that that's a chore. I think the only time I had to ask Oliver, he's now 24 and at university, but when he was at home, I was like, I haven't seen your sports clothes and I know that you're going on Saturday. If you want me to wash them with the rest of our family things, then, they need to be in the laundry basket by this afternoon when I'm putting the wash on. And that was the only time I had to say it. It wasn't like, you always leave your clothes everywhere. Da, 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 da. It's just giving them a gentle reminder, or just I haven't seen it. And yeah, they love you to do it if you're putting on a load of washing anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's so important. Also, just like getting them to help with cooking, and even though it's not that helpful, but we find that when they do help with cooking, they want to eat the food.
Definitely.
And they get more interested in their meals, and it's just,
Absolutely.
There's a really kind of great benefit to including them in these things that you're doing.
Yeah, and it teaches them that they can do it. They can do it for themselves, and then they keep that with them. And as they become teenagers, they start making their own food and cooking themselves. And there's no like, we don't have to sit down and have a lesson about it. They just get into the kitchen and do it because they've done it little by little over the years.
Yeah. And with young children, I always say, like, put out only as much as you want to clean up. So like I might, instead of giving them the enormous jug of milk on the table to put on their cereal, I'll just put out a small bit. And then I'll also have a hand cloth at the ready. So again, preparing the environment so that when it spills, they can just wipe it up. And it was hilarious because my kids used to have yogurt with their breakfast, and they always used to have like this trail of yogurt down the front of their t-shirt, but they knew how to scrape it off. So it was kind of like, are they doing it because they like cleaning it? I don't understand. They don't now at 24 have yogurt down. So at one point it did stop, but it kind of, sometimes you think, are they literally just doing it so they can clean?
That's funny. So your kids, how old are they? 24 and
23. And also, I think that's like the long game as well, is that I see how independent they are now that they're at university. Like, they organize themselves. Occasionally you will get a phone call like, how does insurance work again, for their health insurance, and they have to make a claim or something like that. But for the rest, they've organized their own internet to get hooked up. They can cook themselves meals. They do all their shopping. Then sometimes they go, oh, my house is so dirty, I'm just going to like stay in this weekend and clean. And you're just like, who is this child? Like, it's really interesting that they manage all of those things. So it's the practical aspect of it as well, is that you raise children who can look after themselves, and they care for the environment as well. Like, that's also a big part of independence, is like knowing where your food comes, how you care for plants, being part of nature, I guess, as well. Like when you grow it in your garden, or if you've got a small, even a kitchen windowsill, you can grow some herbs there, and they can go through that process well. So that also shows them like that it takes a long time to grow things, and then they really respect the food rather than throwing it away or anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, like you said, like, encouraging this autonomy is not just for our benefit as a parent, so that they are, doing things on their own without needing us, but just because I think there's this sense of accomplishment and a sense of pride in who they are. And that's really important too, from a young age.
Yeah. And also executive functioning skills. So that's like the ability to carry out a task. So in a small child, we're asking them just to wash some lettuce. And then they might be washing the dishes. And then they might be washing, taking more steps, and they're arranging flowers. And then they might put on an apron. And you're always adding more steps because they're able to then follow a sequence. And that actually helps build their concentration and things as well. So there's actually like a physical side of things. It's actually really good academically for them to be able to follow steps of an activity, which are practical life skills, which is really interesting as well. And being able to stick at a task, that's also another part of it. So there's so many things that you benefit. You benefit from trust, giving them the responsibility for it, following through. Yeah. And I think they love just being part of the family, right? Like, oh yeah, I arranged the flowers. Like I loved in my class when we cut bananas for our snack time, and I might just say, who cut the bananas today? And like this child really proudly says, I helped cut the bananas, So it's really sweet to just call it up as well and, point it out to people who might not know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting you saying that about your 20-year-old children and kind of how independent they are. And we feel the same. Easton's at university now in Hawaii, and he's been a freshman, a first year student, and they're trying to arrange housing for the next year. And he's got 6 friends in there. So there's 7 of them trying to be in this house. And I suddenly got added to a group text of a bunch of parents trying to talk to each other and organize getting this house sorted, and the down payment and the contracts and all these things. And Easton's never involved us in any of these things. And I suddenly became quite aware of how much other parents were doing still for their 19, 20-year-old child. And I just thought, oh, we don't do those things for our child. Like, he does those himself. And that's ultimately what you want, right? Like I always want that as a parent.
Well, yeah, for a minute we feel a bit guilty because all these parents are doing
quite involved,
a lot of stuff for their kids. But then we're thinking, actually, this is probably
a really good thing. Yeah,
he's not involved.
It frees you up to have the joy with your kid. Like, so when you're on the phone to Easton, you can just chat about all the fun things he's up to, as opposed to did you do this and the practical stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then I guess we should add, like, neurodivergent children might have a longer runway, like, to be leaving home and to being able to do those things themselves. So we're always looking at each individual child. So not per age. So like, oh, Courtney's child can do that at 19, or Simone's child can do that at 24. But like, look at your individual child and what their capacity is and what do they need help in, and how can I step back and let them take still some responsibility. So that could also be something that might apply to some of the families listening too.
Yeah, I in fact, this week I had a conversation with some parents because Marlo was on camp last week, and all the parents were talking, and Marlo is this she came out of the womb just incredibly independent, just I'm here and I can do everything. And she packed her bag for camp, and literally we gave her the list. She went off, she ticked off what she needed, she went to camp, she came home, we didn't worry about it. But so many of the parents, I think, worried and went through, and I think that's true of a lot of kids. She's 12, and there are kids who still need help packing their camp bag. And it made me think, oh, actually, probably when Wilkie's 12, he probably will need help packing his camp bag. But Marlo doesn't. Yeah. And they are all different. Yeah. And it's good to call that out.
And what I also did, like, just about packing, because I think that's also another skill of independence, is like, my kids always said, how many pairs of underpants do we need? For some reason, this was something we discussed before we were going on holidays, depending on the number of nights. And then I would just go in and check that, like, everything kind of looked like it was there. And then I'd say, oh, the only thing I think we're missing is such and such. And so you can do it that way for someone who maybe isn't quite to Marlo, but might be, a little bit in between. Again, just giving as little help as possible, but as much as necessary. And they feel really pleased with themselves that they packed it all themselves. And also getting them on board gives them choice, right? So, for example, when my children started to make their own lunches, it was because they hated what I chose was going to go into their lunchbox, right? And so I'm like, would you like to choose? And so what we did was we set up an area, like one shelf in the fridge with all of the things that I kind of like were suitable to take to school. And then they'd make their own lunches and then they ate it. And it's the same like with clothing. They get the choice over what they're wearing, the packing, what they are taking on holidays. So they get like actually to choose. So that's a big part of it too for some families.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great tip.
Mm.
Well, that was really good. I mean, do you have any other tips for people? I mean, these will be people listening who are trying to create a home for their family that encourages independence. And do you have any last tips for families who, I imagine have young kids, who want to kind of create that independence?
One other thing I think is really useful is having visual calendars for those people in the family. So it might just be symbols for young children, but also building up to having activities, because particularly if you've got like one parent who's traveling a lot for work, or there's different people coming to care for them, it can definitely be helpful for them so they know what to expect. So that visual schedule is also part of independence, because they know what they need to prepare, or they know what to expect, and that can give them a lot of security as well. That's one thing that comes to mind about, that might be something in the home that could be really helpful. But for the rest, I think it's really fun because you can set up your homes to like also incorporate your child's character and personality. And when they share rooms, you probably know very well that they could like have a little shelf where they can put their special things, and it makes them feel like they belong to the family, but they can be themselves as well. So there's always like two sides. There's the independence and belonging at the same time.
Yeah. That's a good reminder. Yeah. Thank you so much, Simone. This was really so great talking to you. And I felt like we covered so many good things really quickly. So very efficient. Very Montessori.
Thank you for inviting me. I know, right? Yeah. But thank you for having me. It's been a delight to get to chat about all things Montessori and independence and autonomy, and all the best with your book launch.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Family Home Podcast. If you enjoyed today's conversation, we'd love for you to read our new book, The Family Home.
Our book is full of thoughtful and achievable ideas for real family life, from clever storage solutions and shared bedroom setups to meaningful ways to display your children's artwork and how to make the most of small spaces. With stunning photography by our friend Amelia Rushforth, you'll see inspiring and thoughtful homes of all shapes and sizes, with so many ideas for creating a home that sparks imagination, encourages independence, and brings the whole family together.
You can click the link in the show notes for more information. We can't wait for you to read it.
Thank you.